Welcome to the Edge Performance Podcast. My name's Paul Hatton, head coach of the facility at Edge Gym. I'd like to welcome my brother, our first guest on it, Mike Hatton. Crazy journey you've been on through life and fitness. So talk me through sort of like your early thoughts or your early progressions in the fitness world. So obviously I remember as kids being lunatics in a good way, but mum and dad had their hands full, didn't they? Obviously,
they call it ADHD now. But
that's what they call it now. But we were just nutters, to be fair.
Just kids.
Obviously, we were just running around the streets and stuff. And that's probably where our love of fitness first come. Do you reckon?
To be honest, we was always into sports. Really,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it comes from my dad or what, but it was. I mean, from the start, the crazy Olympics out in the street.
Yeah, like, crazy Olympics.
I was 60-metre dash round the corner, crashing into the wall, shoving each other out the way.
So we used to have this bend round the back of the house, and we used to 60-metre race. There was three of us, me other brother Mark, and obviously it was all mad teenagers. And there we are trying to race around this bend, but the end was a wall. So whoever won basically face planted the wall. Luckily I was the slowest, so I wasn't too bad. That's why I got the looks and he ended up like that.
No, to be honest with you, you always used to shove us out the way to make sure you didn't win.
Always cheating, always cheating.
But yeah, to be honest with you, we was always at it. It was daft, even when we got the pool table, and it was competitive on that, but we didn't use it as that. We'd get the pool cue and stick carrier bags on it and grab all the books off the shelf and fill it up doing
bench press with them,
weightlifting competitions and stuff like that. So, and then on top of that, my mum used to disappear. They used to go out for the day. We used to just get all the pillows, all the covers out, chuck it at the bottom of the stairs. And it's like, right, jump from the top step. It's just like...
Who could jump from the ice step and land it without dying?
I always remember that time, was it Kate and Bear?
Yeah, we spent a bit of time there.
And that was our thing, we was always camping.
Always, yeah.
And my mum and dad would do a 8-mile hike and we'd do a 16-mile because we'd be running off into the woods, tackleberry rolling and stuff like that. I always remember Kate and Bear, and I was into my climbing then. I don't know why, I don't know whether we got into it, but I remember we'd gone to the edge of the bay and there's a wall here up the side of the cliff. So I just started climbing and we're like, oh yeah, just test your foot in, and you go in, before you know it, you're like so high off the ground, 20, 30 feet off the ground.
My dad screaming at us.
My mum and dad's like, where are they? Oh, what are you doing? Get down. And it's like, I can't come down. I'm going to have to go up. So we ended up climbing bloody 50 foot up this thing.
I think that's where my fear of heights come from, that looking down and realising I've gone a bit further than I should have done.
Yeah. I always remember that. It was just like, there was no controlling it. It was just like,
just off you go. But so whatever sport was on TV at the time, that's what we was doing, wasn't it? So if rugby was on, we'd be on that little bit of grass at one of the primary schools, literally rugby tackling each other. The only problem with that is there was rose bushes at the trial line, weren't there? And one day you lost your head and literally ploughed me into these rose bushes. I come out covered from head to foot in blood, and then I'm sprinting through the village trying to get all these to strangle you. Yeah,
I know what that was. You used to, I'm sure, because at the time you was playing, I don't know who you was playing for at the time, but I always remember you used to practice stuff out on me. And I always remember when you did that, you picked me up and you just smashed your shoulder straight into me. It's all practice. It was like, just like that. So next time you made a break, it was like, right, I'm getting in them rose bushes. Yeah, but it was always like that. I think we was always scrapping.
Always, yeah. Even like we had, one set of boxing gloves between us, and we'd do rounds of boxing, because boxing was on, you had one glove on your right and one glove on your left, and it was who could win.
Going for it, yeah.
And we'd ref it between ourselves. So my dad come in from work, and then he'd be, right, what you doing? Upstairs now. Yeah.
So my mum's flip-flop didn't work with us, did it? So she had to work till my dad got in.
Yeah, once the bro gave up, she started handed over to my dad. But that's where obviously our love of sport and fitness and health started to grow a little bit. Got a little bit extreme at times when you're trying to jump out of the top window of a loft to land on a garage, which made it interesting. And then obviously I got mad on the rugby side of it, loved it. So I playing rugby on a Saturday, playing football on a Sunday. And you almost went a different route to start with, didn't you? You almost went...
to be honest with you, I did follow into rugby because I was into the rugby. And I got into it quite a bit when I was playing fullback at Cottags. I loved it.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I got into I think my mate's brother, he was a smoker, like, and we'd found his cig. So me and my mate, about 11 years old, like that, sat in the back garden. Why is it not coming out of our mouth? I don't get it. When my grandma does it, the smoke comes out afterwards, but it's just like, yeah, what's going on there? But it was like, oh, isn't it cool? It's like, looking back, no, it's not cool, but at the time, you're a dumb idiot.
You think you're invincible then as well, don't you?
You see, you had different sort of mates. I had nutcases as mates, you know what I mean? So you end up going a completely different way. But to be honest with you, it was all, I wouldn't say downhill from there, because I'm not saying I had a bad childhood.
No,
I
it's
had a good laugh,
yeah,
you know what I mean? At the time, it's when I started getting into drugs a bit. It was just like, it was all over.
Yeah.
If I'm honest with you, it was everywhere. So it was just like, you just fell into it sort of thing. But a lot of them years, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed myself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Time,
I had some good times on it, but looking back, you're like, well, did you? I was thinking about it the other day actually. It's like, say, like LSD or something. You used to take that and you'd have a great night. I mean, for what it was back then, like 50p quid a go, something like that. And it was all night, not like these idiots on cocaine now, which never got into that out like that. But it's like, and looking back now, you're just like, did I need that to have a laugh?
Once you sort of like got through that stage though, because it changed, not quickly, it went on for quite a time.
It did, yeah.
Most of it was just like marijuana, wasn't it? And he was doing bongs and stuff like that.
That's the thing.
That was the biggest thing.
That was the biggest thing, and to be honest with you, that went through into my 20s.
Yeah.
And it got stupid, to be honest. I remember I was like spending 320 quid a month just on weed.
Yeah.
And you're like, you can pay for a mortgage on it. I could have had an house paid off by that.
Yeah.
You're just like, what are you thinking? And hitting it quite heavy as well, you know what I mean? So, and as a consequence, my lungs are in great shape, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can feel it, and I know it, like, one of my biggest regrets, like, what was you doing?
Yeah.
Wasting all that time. Especially when I look back and I see, because I've still got mates who still do smoke.
Yeah.
I remember we went to Wales not long ago, it was only a few years ago, and it was like, oh, we'll go biking, we'll do this, like we do the canyoning. Love canyoning, you know, jumping off the waterfall, stuff like that. Brilliant. But the rest of the time, it was like, they just wanted to sit around smoking weed, and I'm like,
what have I come here for?
I'm bored out of my head. What's going on? But they're quite happy to just sit there staring off into space. And I'm thinking, I used to be like that.
Yeah.
It's like, what a waste of a life.
But then it's amazing how rapidly it changed then. So we opened this place, didn't we? And almost your fitness journey come alive again. Well, before that though, to be fair, you'd got into real extreme sports, hadn't you?
I'd got into that, and to be honest with you, he used to give me quite a few I got into it quite a while, because even when I was smoking weed, when I was spending 320 quid a month, I remember I was at Total Fitness for a while.
Yeah, you was, yeah.
Because
I remember that.
I'm guessing this was down to my drug years as well, but I didn't mix with people.
No, you couldn't. No,
it was like that when I went to gym. It got real uncomfortable at Total Fitness after a bit, because I'd see the same people there every day, but I'd put my head down. I wouldn't even acknowledge they're there. It was just like, I'm there to train, and that's it. And I spent 2 hours there every day. And I mean, I'd get programs off you, so you know what I mean, I'm going to be climbing this, Mount Kinnerblue or what have you. Yeah. Which was another turning point, to be honest with you, travelling. Once I broke up with her and realised that, you know what I mean, I'd planned my entire life around her. Yeah. And then Mazzy was in Thailand at the time for a year. I'd just come out here. Yeah. And that's when I started getting into travelling, and we always did something. It was always canyoning, climbing, whatever. We've climbed all over the world, and stuff like that. But so I was starting to get fit then, but of course it was wasted. I'd spend 2 hours at Total Fitness and then go home and make a joint.
Smoke again, yeah.
And you're like,
you know
what I mean? Looking back, you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then from there, I still, you know what I mean, I never really got on with people. It was always one of them, it's like, I'm better off not talking to anyone, you know what I mean? I'll just keep to myself, I'm not a social person. And then you said about coming here, and I was always like, well, you know, there's people there.
Yeah, you have to talk to anyone.
I'll have to speak to people, I'm not great at that. But then I came here, and it's completely, it definitely turned my life around, because I came here, and it was like, it was a different world. Yeah. It was like, oh, actually, these people are all right.
Good people, aren't they?
This is
good
a family. It's like a second family.
Yeah. It's like being back in a team, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're laughing and joking, but you're supporting each other along your journey as well. But actually, all the members are now coaching other members that are coming in, which is really nice to see.
Yeah. That's it. It's a family. So that was a massive turning point because it applied to life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At work and stuff like that, where I could actually communicate with people better, and it's like that. And I didn't just dismiss people like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a different person.
Even though I still can be like that. You know what I mean? Just like, But yeah, that was a huge turning point coming here.
I reckon, like, now we said it before, I said it the other week actually, you're probably in the best shape of your life now, I reckon, fitness-wise and shape-wise, probably at that
definitely.
stage. And probably mentally as well, which is pretty...
which is, a massive difference.
I was telling the story, I was told it to a few people, and we named it, me and Lewis actually named it 3 bongs to 3 peaks, because that's where it's gone from, it. So like, you've gone from like doing 3 bongs in the garage with someone pushing on your belly to all of a sudden then deciding, right, I'm going to run 3 peaks. But not only did we do it once, you did it 3 times, realistically.
Because I wasn't happy with the time.
Because you weren't happy with the time, so I need to get a better time, I need to get a better time. We've got a heap of questions from our members and our wider public that they want answering. What we're starting with, what we got?
Well,
test my knowledge.
Let's have a look here. How many fitness/performance goals can one focus at any one time before they become counterproductive?
Yeah, that's a great question, that. I think you can do as many as you want to do as long as it's planned right and it's periodised right. So if you look at all the team sports in the world, they've got to cover endurance, VO2 max, strength, power, speed. They've got to cover that within probably a short pre-season and then lengthen that out into the season. So I suppose as long as you've got one main goal to really focus on and then smaller goals to get to that stage, then I think as many as you want are possible. Me personally, what I like to do is find out where the weaknesses are within that athlete. So we'll do a bunch of tests first. So, you know, I'm going to pick on Owen and Julia, for example, because I put them through probably the hardest test you can possibly do, and that's a 5-minute max effort test on the Versa climber. I mean, that's out and out brutality. And all we're literally trying to do is where the weak areas are within their aerobic, anaerobic systems. And then within that, looking at recovery rates and looking at HRV and all that type of stuff, I can build their then conditioning profile. And that's the same in rugby, but we'll do it more of a run test instead of on a machine. So I suppose as long as it's planned right and it's periodised right into sections that we need to cover, and you're looking at where the weak areas are within your performance as an athlete or as just general public, that gives an indication where we need to start and where we're going to try and get to. So the answers are probably a little bit more complicated than it should be, but in essence, you cover all bases. For me, I'm going to start at the weakest point, and with everything, building a house, anything, we need to start with the foundations. So if we want to get to the high end of our pyramid, we've got to start with a really good aerobic capacity, and then we've got to also have a really good foundation of moving really well to start with, and then building almost a robust system within our weights program.
So it's basically, it just depends on the individual then, really, doesn't it?
We try and base everything individually. So even like when you're working with a team, you're trying to find the individual weaknesses within that player to then enhance them to perform at a higher level day in, day out, week in, week out.
That's it.
But alongside that, not just perform well, but try and stay injury free, which is one of the hardest parts of the demands of certain sports.
Because that's where it makes it more difficult. You can't just write a program and say you're all doing that.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Because it's like, well, that's not going to benefit you at all, but you're going to get loads out of it.
Some people are different on the force velocity curve. Some people are different in terms of profile, in terms of speed and where they're at. Some people are different in terms of body fat. Some people are different in terms of resting heart rate. You know, if their resting heart rate's up in the 70s, I've got a load of work to do from an aerobic capacity point of view. So why am I going to worry about speed and power too much at that phase? But as long as I'm planning it right and it's periodised right, it gives us a chance to turn possibly a mediocre athlete into a world-class athlete. Again, a lot of it comes with desire to want to get there as well. So in terms of answering the question, it's a longer conversation, but for me, you can cover all areas as long as it's periodised right, but I'm going to look at the weaknesses of the athlete or the person that's doing it first.
So you're going to struggle. Again, a lot of it comes down to the athlete's mentality. You're going to struggle if they're not
Oh, they've got, they've got to want it. Yeah, they've got to 100% want it.
It's like
and the public's got to want it as well.
Yeah.
They're going to set their goal, and they've got to want to get there. So it's pointless setting a goal that's out of their reach.
Yeah.
So we need to set a goal and have little stepping blocks along the way to reach that goal.
So you've made it this far, Your next step is this.
And I think that's a good thing about the evolution of everybody that comes in here. They've all got a goal and they want to get to that goal and then get to the point where I've reached that goal, right, what's my next one? Yeah. And we need to help them put little building blocks in base to get it.
And I suppose that's the beauty of this place as well, is there's a fair few of us that are really a bit...
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we're a bit competitive, shall we say?
Just a little bit. There's loads that come in and say I'm not competitive.
But there's loads of people. But it's like they don't. It doesn't clash. People don't go, oh well, bloody hell, I can't do that, because it's like they're not competing against. Like,
but I think what they find, and it shows in here, that a lot will come in and say I can't do that, and actually they'll go, wow, I've done that. Yeah, I haven't been able to do that. I didn't think I could do that. I was fear of doing that. Like, how many people have come in and said I can't run?
Yeah.
And then next minute we're doing crazy runs with sleds and farmers walk handles up and down. So
how much can you, like VO2? Is there massive leaps in it? Can you change the VO2 massively, or is it just part of your physiology? Or
some parts of physiology, but you can change it quite significantly.
Right.
I mean, you've just got to look at the Tour de France cyclists.
Yeah, I know.
Wow, some of their VO2 maxes are absolutely through the roof.
But I just don't know where they get their energy from, because there's nothing on them. They just stick thin. They look ill. But when you're looking at them, they look ill.
Yeah, but they've got
unbelievable.
They've got some serious squad mass.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, the power outputs as well are just through the roof. I mean, we have quite a few triathletes in here, and you see the legs are absolutely huge, but they're quite thin because they want to be light, but they want to be powerful as well. So in terms of VO2 max, you can increase it quite significantly if you use the right protocols to increase it.
Right.
So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so anyway.
So I suppose this is something I should pay attention to, because I'm not very good with recovery. What are your top 5 practices for optimal recovery between sessions?
I think that's a fairly easy one, depending on what you're talking about sessions. If you're talking about from day-to-day sessions, sleep's 100% number one. So sleep is everything. Yeah. And it's one thing that is impossible to catch up on. So if you've lost a night's sleep, scientifically, you cannot catch up on it.
Yeah.
Because your body does its healing processes during them hours of sleep. At certain points, your nervous system's going to repair. Other points, your hormonal system, and so on and so forth. So sleep number one, nutrition number two. The correct nutrition before you actually train, post-training, then leading up to your next session becomes vital. It's a toss-up between the next one. Probably relaxation methods. I'm a big fan of breathing techniques. Huge fan of that to try and dampen our nervous system. I think the modern way of living, everything that's in the environment, the foods we eat, the toxins that we're inhaling every single day, I think we're living a lot of our lives in sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight system. Everybody seems stressed, everybody seems in tone. So I think breathing patterns are huge in terms of relaxing the nervous system and starting to settle tissue tone and sending us more into parasympathetic, and they tie hand in hand with better sleep quality. Yeah. So breathing would be another one for me. Hydration, good quality hydration though. So trying to find the best water you can do to hydrate, and adding things, really simple things like a very small pinch of Celtic sea salt with that, so it's driven then into the cell rather than just coming straight out of you. And then the last one is probably more of your basic, well-known stuff, your 1% stuff. So red light therapy, compression, ice baths, pool recoveries, all that type of stuff. But again, it's about timing it. So it's no good me getting an ice bath after a strength session. It's just going to dampen my strength session. What I've tried to do is going to damage what I've done in terms of strength. So we try and use the ice bath after more of a big conditioning based day rather than a strength day. Yeah, so that's going to dampen the effects. Ice bath's going to dampen the effect of a strength training session. So the last thing I want to do if I bring one of my athletes in and they do a strength session is then put them straight in an ice bath. Yeah. I want that strength session, the hormones that are being produced during that strength session, my anabolic hormones, my testosterone, my growth hormone, etc., to stay heightened for longer periods of time. So the last thing I want to do is then put them in an ice bath and dampen them. But that might then come the next day. Yeah. So it's about timing of your recovery modalities as well. But for me, sleep number one, nutrition number two, breathing patterns, hydration 100%, and then your other ones come alongside that, I think. So I think the recovery is fairly easy. If it's from one session to another, morning to afternoon, I think if you try and if it's an athlete, try and get them a nap. So certain places around the world, certain facilities, they have little nap pods. Right. So when they've finished and they've had some nutrition, they've hydrated, they'll go and have a nap, 20-minute nap, and it's pitch black, it's nice and dark, so they can have that nap and then it regenerates and then ready to go into session number 2. If you're working for a living, it becomes a hell of a lot harder. So you've just got to make sure your hydration's bang on, your nutrition's absolutely perfect, pre and post training, because that's going to set you up really well. And then just some basic stuff, your relaxation methods, your mobility methods that are going to almost prime you then for your next session. And then leading into your next session is then how you prep for that.
Right.
So I want to get the nervous system excited again. So I might do some, basic warm up, but then add some neural warm up then to get my nervous system a little bit excited to then go lift.
Fired, yeah.
But
so your body will tell you as well, because it's like what you were saying about you catch up on sleep. I've had it before when you do get a lie-in, and it very rarely happens because you just spring up, don't you? I'm at work now, but you feel terrible.
Yeah, you feel horrendous. If you wake up at your normal time and think, I'll just have a half-hour snooze, and you wake up going, God, I feel horrendous, headache, lightheaded, all sorts of stuff.
You do feel it.
You do feel
terrible. But I found with the breathing technique, if you get in an ice bath, it does it for you. You can't get into an ice bath without going.
But that's more like driving your sympathetic nervous system again. You're almost going into that fight or flight mode again, aren't you? So, but I think saunas are huge, mate. There's so much research in saunas for increasing VO2 max, even for health benefits, dementia and all that type of stuff. The research in saunas is just frighteningly good.
But I feel it, as I say, I've got a routine on the Tuesday where I get in the sauna, ice bath, back in the sauna, ice bath, and I just feel 100 times better. Mentally, just like that. I'm just like, I'm in a different world.
Yeah, one of my athletes, Owen's a big one for it. So he'll do 7 o'clock grappling, 8 a.m., 7 a.m. grappling, 8 a.m. MMA, then 10:30 strength and conditioning. So he's doing 3 sessions back to back. So his nutrition's got to be bang on in between them. But every single day he goes for a sauna. And the difference it makes to him in general is ridiculous, just from a well-being point of view. He just says I can just keep going and going and going.
And it's de-stress because you just don't think it. I don't. I'm looking at that out of zone out.
Especially if you've got it to yourself. Just someone else in there wants to talk. You've had it. That's it. I'm off. I'm off.
Is the need for deload weeks variable per person, or does the set rule of every 5th week apply to everyone?
That's a great question. I know I sent that one as well. I think if you're in team sport, it becomes a little bit more difficult because you've got 30, 40 people to look after. So it almost becomes a generic deload for them, or depending when the games are coming. So if you've got a longer turnaround, for example, might give a deload that time and then peak them another time. I think for the individual, deload is, I think for everybody, even team athletes, to be fair, it's individual. And there's markers we can look at to see whether they're ready for a deload. So if bar velocity is slowing at the same weight that they've been using for so many weeks, it could be an indicator they're fatiguing or they need a deload. If resting heart rate's increasing, they're probably due a deload. If HRV is changing quite significantly, they're probably due a deload. So there is methods we can look at to say you're ready for a deload. But for me, being a little bit more old school, is nothing actually beats talking to the athlete and communicating with them. How you feeling? How's the body feeling? How's the mind feeling? And also then just generally looking at them, their appearance. You can almost tell by looking at them and how they're feeling, how they're interacting with you and others, that they need a deload week. Example of that, I had 2 come in a couple of weeks ago, and you could literally just tell they were exhausted, they were ready for a break, and I just like, look, wind down for a week. If you're in the position to, I want you to book 4 or 5 days away in the sun, because there's nothing better than the sun for healing. And actually they listened and went and did it, and they've come back absolutely bouncing and flying straight into it. So I think you've just got to look at them markers and sort of like look at yourself and almost listen to your body. Your body's got a great way of telling you what's going on, and your mind has as well. So if you're feeling that element of fatigue, then take a deload week. And deload weeks don't have to be what everybody thinks. It's a full week off. Deload week could be, right, I'm just taking the eccentric load of the weight away, and I'm just going to do a concentric day or a concentric week. So an example of that, if one of my athletes comes in, I'm looking at them, and the look fatigue, resting heart rates increased, HRVs reduced, but they've got this desire to, I've got to lift, I've got to lift, I've got to lift. We do a concentric day, and that could just be a rack pull where they're still lifting at 85, 90% of the max, but they're pulling it up on a concentric and then dropping it on an eccentric.
Yeah.
So then they're getting no muscle soreness on the back end of that. And it just could be 4 or 5 sets of that. And then, especially where fighters are in that mentality, I've got to get better, I've got to get better, I've got to get better, we'll do something like a sled push, but we'll do it for 5 minutes. Again, there's no eccentric loading, it's just purely concentric loading. So actually they're getting some benefit from the session. So there's different ways you can actually do that from a deload point of view. Some people need, a decent length of time. It could be 3 days, it could be 4 days.
And what is it actually, what is it repairing? Is it muscle fatigue, or is it nerves, or is it?
I think a lot of it's the nervous system. It's that, it's allowing the nervous system to settle.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're permanent in this fight or flight mode where we're not designed to be in that fight or flight mode for longer periods we are at the moment. The way we live our lives at the minute with, like we've said in the past, nutrition and diet and all that type of stuff, we're sort of like driven into tension mode all the time, especially in this country, because we live to work here, don't we? Instead of working to live, it's just work. Oh, I've done 90 hours this week, can I get a couple more out? It's that type of thing we live on. So from a deload point of view, it's to settle everything. It's to settle your nervous system, settle the mind, because sometimes you go into the gym and you're stale. You're like, I can't bother to train today. That's almost an indicator that I need a couple of days off to refresh. And that could be a case of, right, I'm going to go to the pool, I'm going to do loads of sauna, I'm going to go for some more walks, I'm just going to do some relaxation stuff, and that is my deload. And sometimes you still want to lift, but all I'm going to do is reduce the volume. So it might be, right, I want to deload, but I still want to lift a little bit. Right, we'll do 3 sets of 5 front squat, we'll do 3 sets of 5 RDL, session finished. So you're still getting a stimulus, but it's not draining your system anymore. So that's how probably to look at it. In terms of answering the question is, everybody's individual, and you almost know yourself. So it's a bit of a communication between you and your coach. You're ready for a deload. And how you feel as well. So if you're literally exhausted, you're ready for a deload. Or injury and illness is a sign of that. So I've had a few athletes that are constantly getting ill every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, because the load's too much. They're not having breaks in between that load to allow them then for the nervous system, immune system to recover and start to help them again. So I think deload weeks become really important, but from an individual point of view.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was leading on with that way of saying, like, athletes, they make themselves ill. Is that because exercise, I'm guessing, affects your gut biome as well, does it?
To some extent, but I think your gut biome's more destroyed by what we put in our guts.
Yeah, well, it is, massively. But I didn't know whether it changed, because sometimes I have bad gut. I don't know. I found out a while back it was apples that was making me a bit weird. And so I cut out apples and I stopped getting the weird guts. But when I trained, it took it felt all of my guts away. It was the only time I felt good. Was when I was training or high intensity training.
Well, again, research and science tells you that exercise is good for everything. And there's more and more research coming out on a daily basis about high intensity exercise being even better for you. There's a lot of talk about zone 2 training at the minute, aerobic training, which is loads and loads of benefit. We do plenty of it. But the amount of research coming out at the minute about high intensity training, now it affects all of our body, gut health, immunology, everything is pretty significant and actually worth a read, to be fair. In terms of apples, it doesn't surprise me, because they're probably the most sprayed fruit in the world. It's covered in pesticides. And then almost, if I'm correct, it's covered in like a chlorine almost to keep it looking immaculate.
Nice and shiny.
So you can buy an apple from a supermarket, it's beautiful, looks amazing, and it can sit on your shelf for months. And not rot. They're designed to rot, aren't they? So we've got a tree in the garden that produces apples. The second it touches the ground, it's starting to rot. And it tastes amazing when you first start eating it, because it's fresh as it comes off the tree. But the health benefits of apples, we all know about them. But I think because they're so driven now and covered in pesticides and everything else that goes with it, won't surprise me your gut's being affected by it, to be honest. Go buy an organic one and see if it's different. I think it probably will be.
Explain HRV and how and why it's used to drive decision on whether to exercise that day or not.
Bennett, you're testing me here, aren't you? Really testing me. I mean, HRV, heart rate variability, is something I've used for years in team sport and with our individuals. I'm sort of like from a crossover background of old school and new school as well. So I used to use it a hell of a lot from a decision making point of view. But you've also got to be careful with it, because it's amazing how athletes will try and trick you in believing the HRV's a little bit faulty so they can have a rest day or something. I mean, the technology behind it's really good. We use a system called Morpheus, which is one of the best ones and the most accurate ones on the market, I believe, looking at the research into it. I think it's really beneficial. It's been really beneficial for my fighters, because the data basically comes through me every morning. It's how it works. They wear a heart rate strap. The second they wake up, they put the heart rate strap on. They lay there for 2.5 minutes, just completely relaxed, as you do when you first wake up. And then they send all that data then through to me, and I can have a look at what the resting heart rate's doing, what the HRV's doing, with a wellness score as well, how they're feeling in terms of muscle soreness and how they're actually feeling mentally. And then from that, I can make a decision what they could do that day, or what level of volume we can push them that day. We normally have set days anyway. We have a low day, high day, low day, recovery day type in terms of volume. But I think it's been really beneficial for some of my athletes, because we've had some athletes that have come that are permanently getting ill. So every 2 weeks they'd have cold sores, they'd have a cold, they'd have flu, they'd have staph, they'd have something, or they'd have injuries. But injury after injury after injury and after injury. And what it does is it almost teaches them to manage their load. So, we used to have one fighter, God, he must have been doing 17, 18, 19 sparring sessions a week. Now, you imagine that volume. And it won 1 or 2 rounds. It was like 10 rounds of 3 minutes, or 10 rounds of 5 minutes. I think it's actually visualising, seeing what's going on with your heart rate and following trends of your HRV, giving more of an indicator of, well, actually, he's right, I am doing far too much. Yeah. But again, like I've said to you, it's a tool that we use, but nothing beats actually seeing the athlete in person and going, actually, HRV's telling me you're down, your resting heart rate's telling me you're down, the way you look and the way you sound's telling me you're down. Yeah. So today, we're going to do a concentric day and a recovery session on the back of it. So I think it's just another tool that you can use as an athlete or as a gym goer. Yeah. It's certainly not the be all and end all, because I've seen people that are in the red and they've probably had the best session they've ever had that day. Yeah,
I've done it myself. Yeah. I've done it myself, been in the red and thinking, this is not going to be good.
Not going to be good.
I had a blinder. Yeah. And you're thinking.
That's it. But then what you'll find on the back of that, you'll have 5 red days on the bounce then. Red is basically meaning your nervous system's pretty shot, you need a break. Yeah. And that's normally an indicator then of saying, right, actually, I do need a deload week. Because I'm constantly red and amber, red and amber, red and amber. So I think it's just another tool. It's a tool on your fitness journey to make choices of making your training better, almost falling into that period as planned that we've already spoke about. Actually, you're always getting injured, you're always getting ill. Let's have a look at your HRV, where you're at for the next 3 or 4 months. Have a look at your trends and then try and balance it out. And since we started using it with ours, touch wood, they haven't been injured and they haven't been ill. Yeah, obviously, we've put some supplements in there and we've improved diet plans and all stuff like that, which is going to help with that as well, and gut microbe that we've already spoke about. Yeah, so it's just a tool, I think.
To be honest with you, I was quite impressed with it, because it sort of knows. I mean, it sort of tells you it doesn't know, but you know what I mean? Yeah. You get your HRV and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm red. Yeah. And then the next day, all of a sudden, you start feeling you've got a cold come on or something like that. So it almost knows that it was coming. Yeah. So it's just like.
But that's useful for then finding your trends. So when you know certain elements of your HRV is changing, and that's the idea behind it. You almost follow a 7-day trend and rolling averages. You can almost keep an eye on it and know you're trying to get to the point without then dropping into the red. Yeah. You know, once you get in the red for a long period of time, you personally could be starting to get an illness, or you could be starting to fatigue. Yeah. So you're trying to monitor it to keep an eye on not getting to that level, if that makes sense. Yeah. And again, it's about being smarter with your training as well. But it's a fair question, but that's one we can go really deep into.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's a big one. So we've got a couple of quick fire ones.
To be honest with you, I don't know if it's a quick fire one, but I'm going to be selfish and ask my question, because it's a strange one. What do you think about fad diets? It's like fasting. You know what I mean? Fasting's a big one at the moment. The only reason I ask is, as I say, I think I've said to you before, I was on the keto diet, a while back, a few years back, and it was the best I've ever felt.
Yeah, it felt
I was
amazing,
absolutely, I mean, I could go forever.
Yeah.
It was just like I'd come back from a 70-mile bike ride and everyone else is like, yeah, I'm a bit done in, and I'm like, I can go
I
again.
feel fine, yeah.
I was brilliant. But the latest one, like the fasting one, and there seems to be a lot of people on it now.
I think I've always been of the opinion, I've been really fortunate to be mentored by some unbelievable strength and conditioning coaches, clinical nutritionists that I've learned loads from. And obviously, we know Phil, super smart when it comes to that type of stuff. I think for me, it's trying to give yourself, your body. We know the body's a self-healing organism. If you get a cut, it heals itself. Yeah. Given the right tools to be able to do that. If you break a bone, it heals itself. Yeah. Unless it's out of place, then it needs a little bit of help. But you know, we're a self-healing organism, but we don't always give it what it needs to then self-heal, if that makes sense. So for me, it's about, as long as your diet's nutrient rich, and what I mean by that is really good quality foods. And nowadays, unfortunately, it's probably got to be organic. Yeah. Because the amount of chemicals that are sprayed on our foods at the minute. So, it's been proven, you know, you look at the density of vitamin C in an orange, for example. You'll go off the shelf and they measure level of vitamin C in it as 0. Yeah. It's absolutely 0. Yeah. Whereas if you go get an organic one, we know it's higher. And that's the same with red peppers. You know, really high quantity of vitamin C in red peppers. So I think as long as you can give your body loads of nutrient density in terms of vitamins, minerals, macros, all that type of stuff, you're on the road to living a healthier life anyway, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, the amount of people that are eating, you know, porridges, cereals, you know, crappy milks and all that for breakfast, you're almost destroying the start of your day. Yeah, your body's going.
Yeah, your first meal of your day is
My grandma always used to say, innit, like your breakfast should be breakfast as a king, lunch as a prince, evening meal as a pauper. Well, we've flipped it the other way around now, haven't we? Yeah. You know, our last meal's massive and it's huge. But how much nutrients are you getting from that? So make sure your food's nutrient dense to start with, and it should be bright. You know, it should be as bright as this track. It should be different colours on it, different makeups of, you know, vegetables, fruits, salads, all that type of stuff. Really nutrient dense, really good quality proteins, and some carbohydrates. For me, carbohydrates is more important than the night because then it helps me sleep. So the slow release carbohydrates then starts to dampen your nervous system somewhat and allows you to sleep. So for me, it'd be high protein, probably high fat breakfast. It'd be a slightly lesser but still high protein, some fat, tons and tons of veg around that, tons of nutrient giving veg that's going to drive health and your immune system and all that type of stuff. And then my evening meal will become more of a carbohydrate based, less protein, a little bit more carbohydrate based, because it allows your processes, your hormones then to put you in more of a sleep mode. Right. You've had it. If you've had a porridge at mid-morning, by 10 o'clock you're doing them ones, aren't you? You're like, why am I tired? Well, it might be that. And you don't put it down to that. You don't do it down to the porridge or all the sugars that you're having for breakfast. It's about nutrient density. I think once you're nutrient dense, really good, you need to have a vast array of different foods as well. You know, so many people get intolerances because they're constantly having the same food day in, day out. Yeah. It's amazing how many people, what do you have for lunch, breakfast? We had a kid there, Callum, legend of a guy, he's strength and conditioner at Hull FC, he's now at Hull KR. Every single day, no matter who he was, what did you have for tea last night? And it become a running joke, what did you have for tea last night? Every day. But he was doing it for a reason. He was doing it to find out the differences in what you had, because people lean to the same thing. Like I saw a diet plan the other day for one of my fighters that someone had given him. God, Bennett, I don't even think I'd have been suicidal on it. He was only allowed so many eggs in the morning, but every morning, that's all he was allowed. Lunchtime, it was the same meal every lunch. Nighttime, it was spag bol every day. And I'm like, God, your body and your gut microbe needs a array of different foods. Yeah. It needs change, it almost needs to be new daily. And, you know, things like the old-fashioned stuff that you used to get from your grandma, you know, you like your sauerkraut and your pickled stuff and all that lot. The health benefits of them are just vast, literally vast. So I'm not too worried about fad diets. I'm worried that people get hooked on them, lose a load of weight,
and think it's the
answer, and then put all the weight back on and do it again, because we're just destroying our system. So for me, it's about nutrient density. I think fasting has got a really big place in it. I think fasting's really good. A 72-hour fast is really good, and the science is telling you it's really good from a health benefit point of view. But for me, you've got to be nutrient dense first. So if I'm trying to fast and I've lived my life on hamburgers from a local hamburger shop and takeaways and MSGs, my body hasn't got the density of nutrients then to survive on. But I'd also probably follow Phil's protocol if I was doing a fast, where every so many hours I'd have some digestive enzymes and I'd add some vitamin C. Because then that's just going to support everything that's going on during that fast. So you are doing a water fast as such, but I'm adding some vitamin C in it. I'm adding some digestive enzymes in there to improve the quality of my gut microbe as well. So I think there's a lot of space for fasting, as long as you're in a decent place in the first place. So I think, to answer your question, I think fast is not a bad thing, to be fair. Some people overdo it. They'll do a 72-hour fast every week. There's no need for that, really.
There's a few people I know that just do like the 12-hour fast.
12-hour fast. I think that's becoming a little bit more common, more from like a calorie point of view as well. If you're short on your feeding window, you're going to eat less calories, so you're naturally going to lose a little bit of weight as well. So instead of having your breakfast at 9 o'clock, I'm having it at 11 o'clock, so I'm closing that feeding window a little bit.
And it's like, keeping your insulin, because obviously it spikes when you're eating, basically.
That's it, you're trying to control that insulin sensitivity, which then controls what's going on with your brain and that fat, body fat link between that and your brain. So quite interesting.
What's your favourite single weights exercise and why?
Oh, that's so fun. If I could only do one?
Yeah, well, just your favourite,
Probably, if I could only do one, and it covers the whole body, I'd have to go on Olympic lift. So I'd probably have to go, for me at my age and the way my body is, I'd have to go hang clean and jerk. Probably.
My favourite.
Because I think, it's my favourite. So I think you cover so many bases in that. You cover legs, you cover frontal chain, posterior chain, you're covering shoulder, you're covering lats, traps, you're pretty much covering every base on that. So if I could only pick one exercise that I could do forever, it'd probably be a proper hang clean and jerk, where you're catching it low, driving out the bottom, and then you're jerking out as well. That's what I'd have to pick, I reckon.
My favourite one.
Also really good for strengthening nervous system, etc. as well. So I'm going to pick that one.
And you know about it afterwards as well.
I know about it afterwards,
What is the best type of training to increase tone and definition?
Fair question. Amy could probably answer that herself, to be fair. She's a bit of a machine in the gym, isn't she?
She is,
I think
getting stronger as well.
I think it's an overall approach to it. I think some people fear lifting weights because the fear of getting bulky and all that type of stuff. I think weights are really, really important for tone, definition, but also health. We know how important it is for health as we get older, but also really good for hormonal pathways. So the research into women that are going through menopause, for example, is unbelievable for lifting weights. And we've had ladies in here that are going through menopause at the minute, but they feel amazing because lifting weights. That all of a sudden the hot sweats dampen a little bit, the mood swings dampen, and then the husbands are coming in and saying, God, what have you done? You can't shout at me today. I'm talking about there as well. I think just having an approach to all of it. So not being scared of weights, probably 2 or 3 weight sessions a week if you can manage it, and then adding some cardio within that, whether it's a walking your dog, getting out in the forest and getting some fresh air and walking, high intensity exercise, just a mixture of all. But I think the big one, don't be scared of weights. And then add good nutrition to that. I think you're naturally then going to be more defined. It's quite funny, we've got a young lady that comes in, absolute legend, Steph. And the amount of time she comes in and she'll go, Paul, I think I've done something wrong in me thing. I've got a bit of it's like a bit of swelling in there. Do you think there's swelling there? I said, no, it's your bicep. You've grown your bicep. You've actually started to build some definition. And the other day she came in and she goes, I think I've hurt my tricep. Can you see that? Like that lump there? I went, no, that's tricep definition. It's quite amusing to see how the shape of the body's changed in such a good way. So I think don't be scared of weights. Definitely just really do them, but make sure your plan's good for it. You get your rep ranges right, get your set ranges right, and don't train too long. I think if you're in the gym doing weights more than 40, 45 minutes, you're wasting your time. Get in, get it done with really good technique. People forget how important technique is. Technique is so important, and movement quality is so important for everything that goes on in our system. Everything.
To be honest, that's where ego gets in the way. Because you see people, you can't lift that weight.
I said it on Friday, didn't I, in the session?
Yeah.
Everyone looked at me like, what's he on about here? Don't let your ego get in the way, because put it to the weight that you can lift, not what your partner can lift.
But
with good
the thing is, they can lift it. It's just that you shouldn't be lifting it like that.
That's it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so, well, I can lift it, but you can't.
Movement quality is so important, and we'll probably look at that later on in other shows, but that is vital.
What are the best supplements to aid good sleep? Which is probably one of the most important things. So.
Huge, yeah. We've already said how important it is for everything. I think a good night's sleep solves everything, doesn't it? I think there's a array of things you can do. For me, breathing patterns become number one because I want to relax. I want to dampen the nervous system so we're getting that parasympathetic state. Big one that I've had most success with is magnesium. A really, really good quality magnesium. So we use one called Magnesium Relax, or you can use something like a magnesium biglycinate, which is unbelievable for sleep. And I ain't had too many complaints. I think it's something where the human body is completely lacking anyways, magnesium. If you look at all the research, the lack of magnesium we're getting in our system is frightening, but it's so good for everything. Yeah. It's ridiculous what happens when we put magnesium in our system. So I think that's something everybody needs to take anyway. So I'd go magnesium. I think if you really, really struggle, one of the best products I've ever tried, but there's a warning that comes with it, especially if you're male, is nitric oxide, PRP nitric oxide. It is phenomenal for sleep. The only issue is probably in the first week or two, you're really going to have some of the most vivid dreams you've ever had in your entire life. And you're also going to get a little bit of reaction downstairs. But men should wake up with that anyway. But you get a little bit of reaction downstairs where you're in pain because you've had it for that long. But that is a phenomenal product. That literally phenomenal product for not just training on, but if you really struggle with sleep, combine that with a nitric oxide. But like I said, there is some warnings with it. I remember a guy, we put him on it and he went, I can't take it anymore. The dreams are ridiculous and the pain in my stomach when I woke up at 3 a.m. with a raging, I won't say what it is, but raging, but what we should have, basically, yeah. So they come to the warning. But for me, certainly for everybody, magnesium in some shape or form, but it's got to be good quality magnesium. So Magnesium Relax or Magnesium Biglycinate for me.
But I always use nitric oxide, it is. Yeah, and to be honest with you, you wake up feeling so much more refreshed. Proper night's sleep.
And when you train on it, you can just train and train and train and train. Yeah. And I think when you do it, if you have it before weights as well, Big Owen will tell you far out. You get the biggest pump you've ever had in your entire life, don't you? It's phenomenal. Right, I think we've covered a fair few bases there. Thanks for your time and telling us your story. It's fairly. I think people can associate what you've been through, this active childhood and then drifting off a good path, bad path, but then sort of like changing your life to become a fitness fanatic and freak, to be honest. We almost plan our holidays and breaks now around something to do with fitness rather than going to relax, as we can't sit for 2 minutes. That's our first Edge Performance podcast. Hope you all enjoy it. Feel free to leave any comments, or if you've got any questions for our next one, feel free to fire them across. Thanks for your time.